In this video, we're going to be talking about conservation of angular momentum when it relates to collisions. This is going to be very, very similar to what we did in Unit 4 for our impulse momentum process. It's just going to be collisions, and it's going to be talking about using angular momentum, but very similar process. All right, so now we're going to get to the meat of the angular momentum, which is the conservation of angular momentum. And we're going to start with collision scenarios, okay? And so it's very similar to linear momentum. When objects collide, we can treat the interacting systems as a single system, the interacting objects as a single system. And that way we can say that the forces they exert on each other are internal to the system. So as long as there's no other external torques, though, then the angular momentum will be conserved, because we'll just say the angular impulse will be 0, and that implies the change in angular momentum will be 0. So that's just like we did it with linear momentum. We group the two objects that are interacting or colliding as part of the system, and as long as there's no external torque, then there's no change in angular momentum. So let's take a look at some examples of how we apply that. Because there are cases, and this is the one thing you want to be very careful on, is in a collision, we don't just want to assume that linear momentum is conserved and angular momentum is conserved. That's not true. You need to analyze whether or not there's an external impulse for linear momentum and whether there's an external angular impulse for angular momentum to decide whether or not it's conserved or not. So let's take a look at this. So we have a system consists of a ball of mass of m2 and a uniform rod of mass m1 length d. The rod is attached to a horizontal frictionless table by p. It initially rotates with an angular speed omega, as shown. The rotational inertia about the rod about the pivot, I'm going to make this a little bit bigger, just because I know it's a little blurry, moves the direction towards the right. Express all answer in terms of m1, m2, omega, and d. Derive an expression for the angular momentum about the pod, about point B before the collision. Now, they're already leading you in this question to be angular momentum, but I want to ask you, why is it, we have a collision here, why is it that we are going to do angular momentum and not linear momentum? And that's where we're going to start with a free body diagram. So the system is here. We're going to do a free body diagram. This is a top view, by the way. So the gravity is going into the page because you're looking from the top of this table. So gravity is going into the page. That's down towards the center of the earth. Normal force is coming up. So in terms of horizontal forces, if you think about it, during this collision, they're going to interact. They're going to hit each other. But there's an axial force here. The axial force here might, you don't know which way it's going to point. I don't even know. Like, it probably points to the left a little bit, or maybe to the right. Yeah, probably to the right a little bit, because this ball is going to push on it and the thing is going to hold it in place. So if you ask yourself, why can't we do linear momentum? Why can't we do conservation of linear momentum? Is because the impulse is not 0. There's an external force from the axle, from the pivot on the system. Okay? However, if we make this our axis of rotation, then we do know for sure that the torque is 0, the angular impulse is 0. Because this axial force, while it may exert a force, so the linear momentum's not conserved, it doesn't exert a torque around this point because the r is 0, and hence the angular momentum is conserved. So that's why we're going to treat this collision with angular momentum. It's not because it's spinning. It's not because it's rotating. It's simply because the linear impulse is not 0, so we can't use conservation of linear momentum. But the angular impulse is 0, so we can use conservation of angular momentum. Okay? So we want the initial angular momentum before the collision of the system. Well, this guy doesn't have any angular momentum because he's not moving. And then this guy has angular momentum, just I times omega, right? And what is the I? The rotational inertia about point P is 1/3 md squared. So they're just telling you it's 1/3 m1d squared times omega. And that's the initial angular momentum of the system right now. Now we want the speed after the collision. That requires us to know the angular velocity after the collision here. Well, now it's a single point mass. This guy came to a rest, so his omega is 0. So then, but we have the angular momentum of this guy, which you think of, right, using the angular momentum from a straight line motion, right? Think of your r vector like this. Doesn't matter where it's located right at this point, but again, we'll decompose it. We only care about the component of the r vector perpendicular to the velocity, which is the vector pointing down, right? It's perpendicular velocity is d. So this is going to be m2 v times d. And then by conservation of angular momentum, you're going to set them equal to each other, right? So then one of the d's cancel, and then you divide by m2. So you get 1/3 m1 over m2 d omega, like that. Assuming the collision is elastic, calculate the numerical value of m1 over m2. Elastic means the kinetic energy before the collision equals the kinetic energy after the collision. The initial kinetic energy was 1/2 I omega squared. That's 1/2 1/3 m1 d squared omega, quantity squared, or sorry, that's the I times omega squared. All right, and the kinetic energy final is just, you can do 1/2 I omega squared if you want, but like normally for a single object moving in a straight line, we just do 1/2 mv squared. So it's 1/2 m2 v squared. But we know what v is given this quantity. It's 1/2 m2 times 1/3 m1 over m2 d times omega, quantity squared, right? And we know that those are going to be equal to each other. So let's do a little bit of simplification. So it's 1/2 1/3 m1 d squared times omega squared is equal to 1/2 m2. Let's just square everything in here. So it's going to be 1/9 m1 squared over m2 squared d squared omega squared. Okay, so we said the kinetic energy is equal to each other because that's what it means to be elastic, right? Then the 1/2s cancel. We'll just do some canceling. One of the m1s will cancel. One of the m2s here will cancel. Let's see. The d squares will cancel. And so will the omega squareds. They'll cancel. So we get on the left side, we just have 1/3 is equal to 1/9 m1 over m2. And look at this. We just want to solve for m1 over 2. So multiply by 9, we get it's equal to 3. Okay. Let's look at another example here. So we have a space shuttle astronaut in a circular orbit around the Earth has assembly consisting of 2 small dense spheres, M, whose centers are connected by a rigid rod of length L and negligible mass. The astronaut has a device that will launch a small lump of clay at speed v0. Express your answer in terms of here. Initially, the assembly is floating free at rest relative to the cabin, and the astronaut launches the clay lump so that its perpendicular strikes and sticks to the midpoint of the rod. Determine the total kinetic energy of the system after the collision. Now, we're hitting the midpoint here. So this one we might not exert a torque. Let's say if it were to rotate, it would be around this point, but we're gonna hit it right there. So this is gonna be a little bit more like a linear momentum. Okay, so the way you want to think about it is like almost just like a linear momentum. We have something going upward, hits it. It's not gonna be spinning afterwards, right? So you could do it with angular momentum, by the way. It's just kind of like the linear momentum will tell you more because these things, after you hit it straight on, they're just going to move straight upward, right, with the velocity afterwards. So afterwards, after this collision, it's going to look like this. Like this is going to be stuck to it, and this is going to be moving with VF. And we want to know how much kinetic energy is. So we're going to treat it like impulse momentum. Right, so conservation of momentum. So the initial momentum, if we say up is the positive direction, remember momentum's a vector, right? It's going to be mv0. The final momentum is all three are going to be moving together with the vf. And so by conservation of linear momentum, mv0 equals 3 mvf. M's cancel. Vf is equal to 1/3 v0. And then we want the kinetic energy at the end here is 1/2 mv squared. That's 3m. And then how fast they're going is 1/3 v0 squared. 1/2 mv squared. So that's going to be, let's see, 3/2 m times 1/9 of v naught squared. So that's going to cancel to be 1/6 m v naught squared. Okay, so that's the kinetic energy after the collision. Determine the change in kinetic energy. Well, the initial kinetic energy was 1/2 m v0 squared, because we just had this guy moving. So the change in the kinetic energy is going to be the 1/6 mv0 squared minus the 1/2 mv0 squared, right? So 1/6 minus 1/2 is 1/3, I think, or negative 1/3. Negative 2/6, negative 1/3. Yeah, you can use a calculator for that. I'm just a little bit lazy. So that's how much energy we lost in the collision, and that's due to the fact that the clay deformed, it got stuck to it, the physical damage, deformation, okay? All right, now it's brought to rest and the lake clump is removed. The experiment is repeated. Now we're going to strike perpendicular to here, this time sticking to the wrong one end. Determine the distance from the left end of the rod to the center of mass and clay immediately after the collision. Wait, determine the distance from the left end of the rod to the center of mass of the system immediately after the collision. Assume the radii of the sphere. So we want to know where's the center of mass of this system once it gets stuck together here. And so this is our center of mass calculation. We have 2m over here, and we have m over here. And we're going to say this is x equals 0. This is x equals L. What is our center of mass calculation? Is we're going to sum the mass times its position. So m times 0 plus the 2m times L divided by the total mass, which is 3m in this case. So then that's 0. We get 2/3 L. So the center of mass is located around 2/3 of L, right around here. Okay, on the figure, indicate the direction of the motion of the center of mass immediately after the collision. Okay, so center of mass. So you kind of think like, what's going on? Center of mass. Why is the center of mass happening here? Well, from the perspective of the center of mass is, remember, when we have the whole system together, if there's no external impulse, this is still unit 4 stuff. No external impulse, center of mass velocity is not going to change. So the center of mass, the direction of the center of mass is going to be the same before and after the collision, right? So right now, the system, center of mass, like, so as it's moving, the center of mass is actually like right here. It's moving straight upward. So it's going to continue to move straight upward. Center of mass is still going to continue with a different velocity, but still continuing in the same direction. So it's going to be upwards like this. Determine the speed of the center of mass immediately after the collision. Actually, not any different than we did before, okay? From this scenario and this scenario, because the center of mass is just going to continue straight up, it's not going to change. You just want to think about what's the momentum before of the system, what's the momentum after, and the momentum doesn't change. So the velocity of the center of mass is going to be the same as in part A. Even though, yes, you're spinning, but that's a torque perspective. Remember, our linear momentum always talks about just the general system center of mass motion, right? And so this is not going to be any different. It's going to be 1/3 v0, just like before. Determine the angular speed of the system, assembly and clay lump immediately after the collision. I'm going to say relative to the center of mass. Okay, they should have been more specific on what the angular speed is. Let's say relative to the center of mass, because it's going to rotate now around the center of mass. So the center of mass of the system is just going to move straight up. Everything's going to rotate around it. So what is the initial angular momentum? Because there's no external torques on the system. Let's look at the initial angular momentum, again, relative to the center of mass is located here. Okay, so the rod, the two-sphere system doesn't have any angular speed, right? No angular momentum. This thing has an R vector like this, but all I care about, because the V0 is upward, is the component perpendicular, right? Which is 1/3 L, right? That distance from there to there. I care about that perpendicular component of the velocity for the angular momentum calculation. So it's 1/3 m, v, and r. Yeah, remember it's the mvr for a single point mass moving in a straight line. So that's the initial angular momentum. Then the final angular momentum is just going to be I times omega. What is the I of this system? Relative to the center of mass, so the center of mass is here. We're going to say it's mr squared, so it's this m. This thing is 2/3 L. Plus the 2m is located 1/3 L. Oh, so let's calculate the I. This is just me calculating the I. The I is going to be 4/9 ml squared plus 2/9 ml squared, because this is 1/9 times 2. And that's going to be 6/9 ml squared, which is going to be 2/3. 6/9, 2/3 ml squared. And so the final angular momentum is just I times omega, which is 2/3 ml squared times omega. By conservation of angular momentum, we're going to set it equal to 1/3 m v0 times L. And let's do a little bit of canceling. One of the L's will cancel, the M's will cancel, and that's pretty much it. We want to solve for omega afterwards. So we're going to divide by L. Oh, the 3's will cancel, and divide by 2. So omega is then going to equal v0 over 2L, like that. Think I did that right? Okay, like that. Determine the change in kinetic energy as the result of the collision. Well, the initial kinetic energy is 1/2 mv0 squared, right? Now the final kinetic energy, it's both spinning and moving in linear motion, right? So 1/2, the 3m, is moving at v0 over 3 squared. But it also has rotational kinetic energy, 1/2 I, which is 2/3 ml squared, times omega squared, this squared, right? V0 over 2L squared. So this part's going to be the same. We're going to have the same kinetic energy from here, just doing this calculation. That's going to be 1/6 mv0 squared. Plus, then let's do some canceling here. This will cancel. The L squareds are going to cancel because when you square this is a L squared. This is going to be 1/4 times 1/3. That's going to be 1/12 mv0 squared. And so this is 2/12 plus 1/12, 3/12. That's 1/4 mv0 squared. You can use a calculator for that. And then so the change in kinetic energy. Sorry, I'll scroll down. This is for the next lesson. Sorry, 1/4 mv0 squared minus 1/2 mv0 squared means negative 1/4 mv0 squared. So you might be like, oh, that's weird. We change less energy. But that's how you work it. So this is a good problem because it illustrates linear momentum, angular momentum. How do we treat those things and how do we analyze them? Okay. If you found this video helpful, come check out our school community. It's got an amazing bunch of features. It's got extra videos, corrected videos, better than the ones that I have errors on YouTube. It's got multiple choice free response questions. I hold live Q&A sessions and go through more problems and I answer students' questions, help with schoolwork, all kinds of things. If you want to check it out, look in the description below or check out the website and find us in the school community. You get a 7-day free trial to give it a shot, just to check it out, see what it's like, come join some calls, and honestly, come learn AP Physics 1 even faster with us.